Once bustling hubs of travel and commerce, these airports now stand silent and forgotten, their runways overgrown and the terminals left to decay. From massive international airports abandoned due to shifting economies to remote airstrips lost to time. Join me, we're counting down 15. Number 15, the Berlin Tempelhof Airport. Berlin Tempelhof Airport, located in the borough of Tempelhof-Schönenberg, is one of the most distinctive abandoned airports in the world, mostly because you can't fly in or out. Its history intertwines with pivotal moments in aviation and global events, making it far more than just an empty terminal. Tempelhof was officially designated an airport in 1923. Its original terminal, built in 1927, quickly became inadequate as air traffic increased. In the mid-1930s, during the Nazi era, a massive reconstruction began. The airport was designed to serve both as a practical transportation hub and a symbol of the state ambition. Located on West Berlin, Tempelhof became a lifeline. Allied forces delivered millions of tons of food and supplies through a relentless series of air deliveries. This operation solidified the airport's role in history. By the 1970s, newer and larger airports like Tegel and Schönefeld were better equipped to handle the demands of modern air travel, and Tempelhof, with its limited capacity, became a primarily commuter airport catering to regional flights. In 1996, Berlin's leaders adopted the Consensus Resolution, aiming to consolidate the city's air traffic at a single airport, Berlin-Brandenburg. Tempelhof's closure was part of this plan, and by the early 2000s, commercial operations at the airport were winding down. Despite protests and a failed referendum to keep it open, Tempelhof ceased operations on October 30th, 2008. Number 14. Helinikon International Airport. Helinikon International Airport, or Helinikon, was established in the late 1930s at a time when aviation in Greece was just additional terminals, enabling the airport to handle increased passenger volumes. By the 1990s, though, Helinikon was under strain, processing more than 10 million passengers annually, far exceeding its capacity. Discussions of replacing the airport began, culminating in its closure on March 30th, 2001. The closure marked the end of an era for Athens, as Helinikon had long been its gateway to the world. Despite the logistics, the decision stirred mixed emotions among those who had worked at or flown through the airport during its storied history. Following its closure, it was partially repurposed for the 2004 Athens Olympics. Sections of the site were transformed into venues for baseball, fencing, kayaking, and other events. However, this brief resurgence wasn't enough to stave off decay. Once the Olympics ended, the site fell into neglect. The global financial crisis in 2008 exacerbated the situation, and by 2014, a €915 million redevelopment deal aimed to convert the area into a massive coastal resort, including luxury hotels and shopping malls. To redevelopment, some iconic elements like the East Terminal building will be preserved, offering a nod to the airport's significance. Number 13. Nicosia International Airport. Nicosia International Airport, once the primary gateway to Cyprus, is now one of the most striking abandoned airports in the world. Its story intertwines with the island's turbulent history, making it a poignant symbol of unresolved conflict. Built in the 1930s, though, the airport initially served as a military airfield for the British Royal Air Force. By the late 1940s, it had expanded into commercial operations, hosting airlines like BOAC, Cyprus Airways, and MEA. The first terminal, a modest facility built in 1949, gave way to a modern terminal in 1968, designed to accommodate 800 passengers at a time. The airport came to an abrupt halt in 1974 during a period of intense political upheaval. On July 15, 1974, a coup by Greek nationalists aimed to unite the civilians. A Hawker Siddeley Trident jet remains parked on the tarmac, its rusted frame a stark contrast to its once polished exterior. The control towers, hangars, and other structures bear the scars of war and neglect. For many, this airport's more than a relic. It's a physical reminder of Cyprus's unresolved conflict. Efforts to document and preserve its history have gained traction in recent years, and in 2022, a virtual tour of the airport was released, offering a glimpse into its operational heyday and its current state of disrepair. Number 12. Kai Tak Airport. Kai Tak Airport, located in Kowloon Bay, Hong Kong, remains one of the most fascinating abandoned airports in the world. It began its life in 1925 as a humble airstrip on reclaimed land, initially serving a flying club and military purposes. After World War II, it transformed into a civilian airport and became the hub for Hong Kong's rapid development as a global trade and tourism center. By the 1950s, the airport expanded to accommodate international-only 47-degree turn at low altitude after spotting the iconic orange and white checkerboard hill before aligning with the runway. This precarious maneuver earned Kai Tak its nickname, Kai Tak Heart Attack. Noise and air pollution from the airport became a significant burden for the growing city, as did restrictions on building heights in Kowloon. Nighttime curfews and increased operational limits further strained the facility. Kai Tak's final day as an operational airport came on July 6, 1998. The last commercial flight, Cathay Pacific Flight CX-251, departed just after midnight. After its closure, its vast grounds were repurposed. For a time, the former passenger terminal housed car showrooms, gaming arcades, and recreational facilities. And the iconic runway was even used for events like BMW's hydrogen car testing and as a golf course. Number 11. The Galeville Military Airport. Galeville Military Airport, once a busy site for training pilots during World War II, now lies abandoned and reclaimed at 47, only 6 years after it opened. Following the closure, the airport's runways and buildings were repurposed for training programs run by civilian agencies like the FBI and the U.S. Marshal Service. While the airport never returned to its previous scale, it did continue to serve as a training ground for years before being completely abandoned. By the mid-1990s, the site was largely unused, and in '99 it was handed over to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Over time, the remnants of the old airport began to fade as grasslands and woodlands grew over the area. The runways, which once hosted planes, are now marked with X's to signify that they're no longer in use. Today, the former site is a peaceful wildlife refuge. Nearly 180 bird species have been documented in the grasslands here, making it one of the top areas in New York for grassland-dependent bird life. This site offers a contrast between its past as a military facility and its current role as a wildlife refuge. Where warplanes once flew, people now walk the trails, enjoying the tranquility of nature. For that year, though the 99th Naval Construction Battalion lengthened it to 6,000 feet by 1943. By 44, the island was one of the busiest air transport terminals in the region, aiding in the movement of military personnel and aircraft. From the 1950s to the 70s, the island hosted a mix of military and commercial flights. Continental Micronesia and Aloha Airlines made regularly scheduled flights to the island, although civilian access was tightly controlled. In the 1970s, its role shifted once again. The island became the site for the storage of chemical munitions, which led to a significant change in its operations. By the 1990s, regular flights were discontinued, and the airfield was primarily used for emergency landings and military operations. By 2003, the once busy airstrip had fallen into disrepair. The runway, a 9,000-foot stretch of asphalt and concrete, was no longer maintained. The airfield was decommissioned in 2005, officially closing its door to any future civilian or military operations. The closure marked an end in euro investment, created an airport designed to handle millions of passengers with the expansive infrastructure, including a 4,100-meter runway and a modern terminal. It opened in 2009, right before the financial crisis hit. Despite the grand designs, the airport's location proved to be a major hurdle. Situated far from Madrid, the airport was difficult for passengers to reach, especially considering it was far from the typical routes of low-cost carriers. Initially, 2 low-cost airlines, Ryanair and Vueling, operated flights, but they didn't bring the expected traffic. Vueling in particular had its flights subsidized by the government, and after just 3 years of operation, the airport was forced to shut down in 2012. The buildings and the runways began to deteriorate, and the facility was put up for sale. However, the €89 million asking price scared off potential investors, and it wasn't until years later that the airport found a new owner. In 2019, it was sold for a fraction of its construction cost, about €56 million, to a company named Ciudad Real runway for a supercar challenge. Number 8. Pearls Airport. Tucked away on the northeastern coast of Grenada, Pearls Airport stands as one of the most intriguing abandoned airports in the world. Opened in 1943 as the first airport in Grenada, Pearls began its life as a key military installation during World War II. It's located about 19 miles from the capital, St. George's. The airport's original purpose was to serve as a base for Allied military aircraft. After the war, Pearls Airport was handed back to civilian control. However, its geographical challenges and distance from the main commercial centers meant it would never become a major hub. For most of its early years, Pearls was limited in scope, with the main commercial operator being Leeward Islands Air Transport, which linked Grenada to nearby Caribbean islands with its small 48-passenger turboprop aircraft. Pearls was really never fully integrated into the regional network of aviation due to an agreement by the British government, which had a stake in protecting British West Indian Airways from competition. This meant that Major was quick, with light resistance from local forces, and Pearls was swiftly taken over. Following the U.S. military's departure and the completion of Point Salines International Airport in 1984, Pearls Airport was effectively closed for commercial use. Moving on to number 7, Željava Air Base. Željava Air Base, located on the border between Croatia and Bosnia, is known for its massive underground structure that was built during the Cold War as part of Yugoslavia's strategy to protect itself from potential nuclear threats. Construction began in 1957 and was completed in '65 at a staggering cost of $6 billion, an amount that would far exceed the annual military budgets of Serbia and Croatia combined. This secretive complex, known as Objekat 505, was equipped to withstand a direct nuclear hit, and its elaborate design included 4 massive underground tunnels, which allowed military jets to be launched in the event of an attack. With its vast network of tunnels, Andog's National Army made the decision to destroy the airbase and prevent it from falling into the hands of the warring factions. The destruction continued into 1992 when the Republic of Serbia and Krajina added another 56 tons of explosive, causing a blast so powerful that it was felt in the neighboring regions. The site is hazardous due to unexploded ordnance and landmines, posing a significant risk to anyone who ventures there without proper precautions. The Bosnian police also used the site to train their canine units in explosive detection. The remnants of the airbase, with its eerie tunnels and dilapidated structures, offers a glimpse into a time when Yugoslavia was preparing for a global conflict that, thank goodness, never came. Number 6. Abandoned Airport in Zvartnots. Zvartnots Airport in Armenia is one of the most fascinating airports in the world, not just for the architecture, but for its journey through history. Built in the 1970s, the terminal was a striking example of Soviet-era ambition. It wasn't, including political shifts and economic strains, meant that it could no longer support the original role. The terminal continued to operate until 2008, but by then, it was outdated and inadequate for Armenia's growing needs. Once the airport was decommissioned, it was left to deteriorate. Leaks, broken windows, and damaged structures became a regular sight. Inside, remnants of the airport's busy days lingered. Abandoned baggage carousels, dusty old ticket stubs, and empty offices piled with forgotten papers. Today, it remains a symbol of a bygone era, frozen in time. Its fate is uncertain, but international efforts to save it continue, with proponents hoping that the building can be repurposed rather than lost to history. With its striking design and historical significance, Zvartnots stands out as one of the coolest abandoned airports in the world, offering a glimpse into the ambitious spirit of the Soviet Union and the bold visions of the architects who crafted it. Number 5. Floyd Bennett Field. Floyd Bennett Field, located in Brooklyn, New York, is 40s. With the onset of World War II, the site became a key strategic military asset. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard took over operations at the airport, using it as a base for air patrols and other wartime ops. After the war, Floyd Bennett Field continued as a reserve base until the 1970s, when military cutbacks, including the closure of many domestic bases, left the field largely abandoned. Today, Floyd Bennett Field stands as a historical site rich with memories of early aviation and the military history. The hangars, runways, and even the control tower offer a hauntingly beautiful glimpse into a time when the airport was bustling with flights and operations. The site's also listed on the National Register of Historic Places due to its contributions to both civil and military aviation. Visitors can explore its old structures, while also taking in the surrounding natural beauty of the Gateway National Recreation Area. It remains an important cultural and historic landmark, offering both a fascinating look into the past and a vibrant recreational space for New Yorkers today. Then drive and landing right near the park itself. However, the runway's operational life was short-lived. After only a few years, Shawnee Airlines discontinued its flights to Disney World, making the airport essentially obsolete. Today, the area is tucked away and can be accessed via a side road beneath the monorail, but it's easy to overlook unless you know what you're looking for. The airport may have closed down, but the remnants of its past tell a quirky story about the intersection of aviation and Disney magic. Even though no planes have landed there in decades, the runway still holds a hidden surprise. When driven over at roughly 45 miles an hour, the grooves on the pavement play a familiar tune, "When You Wish Upon a Star." This musical effect is designed to surprise passengers on small aircraft landing at the port. ensuring a nostalgic and somewhat whimsical remnant of the past. But the runway's fate started to take a turn for the worse in the late 70s when the monorail system was extended. The new elevated track running near the end of the runway made plane landings significant safety hazards by air. And while planes may no longer land there, the musical grooves in the pavement continue to provide a small yet memorable piece of Disney nostalgia. But I'm sad to say that the musical grooves were removed in 2008. Number 3. The Tallahassee Airstrip. The Tallahassee Airstrip, located in the remote jungles of Papua New Guinea, is one of the most intriguing abandoned airports, particularly because of its deep ties to World War II history. Built during the war by the Australian military, Tallahassee was a small airstrip originally intended as a rudimentary landing site for emergency landings. The airstrip changed hands several times between Japanese and American forces, reflecting the back-and-forth nature of the fighting in the South Pacific. However, its most significant use came in early September 1944, when the airstrip became the site of 2 emergency landings by American bombers. On September 3, 1944, a B-25H bomber, having completed a successful mission against Japanese ships along the south coast of New Britain, ran into it, and today it's still a rare and intriguing sight, with 2 wartime aircraft still resting where they landed, the B-25H bomber and the Lockheed Ventura. Reaching the site of the airstrip today is not easy. The location's only accessible by 4x4 vehicles, and visitors have to travel on a narrow, overgrown path through the jungle that was once the landing strip itself. Today, it remains an evocative reminder of the region's role in World War II, with the jungle slowly consuming what little remains of the landing strip. While the airstrip itself has been lost to time, the 2 planes, forever stranded in the jungle, offer visitors an unforgettable glimpse into the past. Number 2. Tonopah Abandoned Airfield. The Tonopah Airfield, located in the expanse of Nevada near the town of Tonopah, is an intriguing example of an abandoned military facility. Constructed in 1940, it was developed as part of the U.S. Army Air Force rapid expansion during World War II. At its height, the airfield covered over 10,400 acres and boasted an array of facilities. In 1945, the airfield's importance rapidly waned. The surplus of military installations led to its decommissioning in 1947. By 1949, the property was transferred to Nye County for civilian use, but its potential as a municipal airport was limited. The few buildings that remained became a blend of relics and ruins, slowly succumbing to the harsh desert environment. Environmental concerns surfaced due to the presence of hazardous materials such as petroleum, asbestos, and remnants of underground storage tanks. Multiple remediation efforts have been undertaken over the years to address contamination, and these environmental issues have contributed to the airfield's status as a partially functional site, with aviation activities limited to a small number of operations. In its current state, the airfield is a shadow of its wartime self. Its isolation and stark environment have preserved some aspects of it, making it a poignant reminder of the vast military network that once spanned the United States during World War II. Despite its abandonment, it still continues to capture the imagination, standing as a resting place for thousands of military aircraft. The history of the Boneyard dates back to the aftermath of World War II in 1946. The U.S. military faced a surplus of aircraft as wartime production ramped down, resulting in a staggering number of planes needing a place to go. Among these were the iconic aircraft like the Boeing B-29 Superfortress bombers and the Douglas C-47 Skytrain transport planes. Tucson's arid climate, characterized by low humidity, proved to be the perfect setting for storing these machines. The dry, alkaline soil of the region eliminates the need for expensive paving, allowing the aircraft to be parked directly on the desert floor. Over the decades, it's evolved into more than just a storage facility for surplus aircraft. At its peak, it housed over 6,000 planes, including Cold War-era bombers, Vietnam warfighters, reconnaissance aircraft, and even experimental planes. Today, it remains one of the largest aircraft storage areas in the world, with nearly 4,000 aircraft from various branches of the U.S. military. This facility employs a dedicated team. Military technology continues to advance. It faces new challenges in managing its vast collection. Modern aircraft made from lightweight composite materials and sophisticated electronics are less suited to long-term storage and regeneration. The increasing shift towards unmanned aerial vehicles and cyber warfare further reduces the demand for traditional airframes. Nevertheless, AMAR continues to adapt, exploring new technologies and innovative solutions to manage and repurpose its inventory, ensuring that the Boneyard remains a key asset in the evolving landscape of military aviation. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.